Welcome back to the Andy Ramage podcast. Let's do this. We're going to talk about how to create behavioral change without willpower. This is a huge topic in many ways, and one that's very relevant to anyone on their alcohol-free adventure, because no doubt at some point you've said to yourself, I don't have the willpower, or I don't have willpower of a saint. Why is everyone else perfect? Why are they able to just decide in an instant and make lasting behavioral change when I am cursed by the willpower gods? Or maybe that's just me. So we're going to dive into that topic in a big way. And before we do, just a quick mention of this podcast being sponsored by the Coach Business School. If you head there, you can come and train with me to become a life coach, executive coach, and all of my coaches, I also train them in the specialism of alcohol-free performance coaching. Or if you're already a qualified coach, you can come and train with me in my MBA or take that coach alcohol-free performance coach specialism separately. Go to coachbusiness.school. All right, so today's conversation, all about the willpower free methodology that I've been creating over the last 10, 11 years or so. But before I get into that, I had a lovely conversation today with the fabulous Sarah Rusbatch, who is over from Australia, just run the London Marathon. What a woman, in 4 hours 15, I believe, and is huge in the alcohol-free space in Australia and globally. Many of her wonderful group, which are all women, have come to join me in my coach training course, which is cool. And Sarah's just fabulous. We've done lots of work together and we will be doing more things together. But it was just wonderful to connect in the real world, because most of our connections up until this point had been virtual. Sarah being in Perth, Australia, and me being in London. But it was just so nice. It was joyous to get together and have that lovely connection. And it was a real celebration of a different kind of connection, in that we met at Liverpool Street, which is in the heart of the city of London, in a hotel there called the Andaz Hotel, where I keep hanging out lately. I was in there just on Monday with Mike Moody, the other co-founder of Authentic Brew. But anyway, I was back in there today on Wednesday for more chats with Sarah, and we were reflecting on the fact that our lives are so different now. We were knee-deep, both of us. Sarah was in the heart of the city in recruitment, which is another quite boozy industry, and I was broking, another big boozy industry, and no doubt we were really good at that. I get the impression Sarah was probably really good at that as well, like myself. And we went on our adventures, and along the way I was able to inspire Sarah, which is really cool, and I love this, right? She's 7 years alcohol-free when we met today, I think it was. How cool is that? And I inspired Sarah on her journey, and then look at what she's doing now. You know, she has groups of like tens of 50s of thousands of incredible women from all over the globe coming together to transform their relationship with alcohol as a gateway into their best lives. Like, I feel so grateful that my adventure has inspired a few others that are going out there and inspiring others. It's like this wonderful momentum, this domino effect of positivity that's changing millions of lives effectively. And this alcohol-free adventure has brought that about. And we were both reflecting how different things are, right? Before, we would have been knee-deep in all the chaos of that London life, and here we were in the Andaz, just having a large bottle of sparkling water. Thanks very much. And loads of chats and laughs and real deep connection in a way that we probably would never have got to had we still been drinking. And a real reminder, I think, for us both, that this alcohol-free adventure is so much more than just stopping something. It really is the start of this new life journey of a completely different way of being, which for me personally, and I'll speak on behalf of Sarah, is so much more rewarding than the lives that we were leading, which is really cool. Anyway, to today's topic, the willpower-free approach to life. This is something I've been exploring and researching for well over a decade. My second book, Let's Do This, How to Use Motivational Psychology to Change Your Habits for Good, was really a deep dive into all things willpower, because I didn't appear to have any. and here's my hunch. If you're listening to this, I think you probably felt the same at some point in your life. I'd be continually frustrated with the whole willpower thing, especially in the early days of me trying to stop drinking. It'd be like, why can't I blooming just nurse a pint for 6 hours? Like, you know, you've got that friend in your life that can sort of take or leave alcohol that's really frustrating. I just couldn't seem to do it. And why, when I said I was going to do something, did I not follow through? And why is everyone else perfect? And why does everyone else just make a decision and then it happens for them perfectly? All that sort of nonsense and noise that spins around your mind. And I continually beat myself up for my lack of willpower. But then on reflection, it didn't actually add up, because when I really started to think about it, I realised, well, hold on, I've got no willpower, it appears, in this space of being alcohol free, but I've clearly demonstrated lots of willpower to reach this point in life with all its, material successes and whatnot. So maybe there's more to this willpower thing than meets the eyes. And then, of course, you come across the brilliant study, the Marshmallow Study. If anyone's familiar with that, this is Walter Mischel back in the 1960s. He decided to run a test, which was really all about temptation, how to avoid temptation. So he decided to run this test at his daughter's preschool. Bearing in mind, Mischel was a professor at Stanford University, so this was like the Stanford preschool. So these kids are like 4 and 5 years old. So the test was simple but brutal. And the test goes like this. They would take these kids one by one, bring them into these tiny little rooms where there was just a chair and a table. And the test would begin when Walter would come in with a little plate, little paper plate. You can imagine it, can't you? Like a party plate. On it, this big, juicy marshmallow. And then he would put that down on the table in front of this poor child. And then, this is where it gets harsh, he would pretend to leave. So he almost motioned to go towards the door. And as he reached the door, almost turned back to the child and say, oh, by the way, I've just got to step outside for a couple of minutes. If you don't eat that marshmallow, when I come back in, I'm going to give you a second marshmallow. Sound like a good deal? And always sort of get the nod, and then he'd go outside and shut the door. Unbeknownst to the child, there was two-way mirrors or glass, and the researchers are looking in at the children then to see what they did. Like, how did they resist temptation? And some of them sang, some of them wiggled and squiggled and squirmed, turned their back to the marshmallows. And this is where it's truly unfair. Walter would wait outside for up to 15 minutes to see if there are any of these super willpower children that could resist for that long. And then they timed it, right? So the whole objective of this research was pretty simple. It had nothing to do with willpower at the time. It was just about how do these children use different techniques and tactics to avoid temptation effectively. So they run the test completes, they box up the marshmallows, eat them, I'm sure, and it was forgotten about until about 10 years later. And it so happened that Walter's daughter was involved in those first tests, and over the years, as children and their parents talk, you sort of get to know their friends and their classmates, many of whom did the original study. And there was a running theme. Certain kids always seem to do really well in school and score really well in their tests and just in general. And then there are other kids that were always in trouble and scored less well. And the marshmallow fell from the proverbial tree, as it were. Mischel had an idea. He thought, I wonder if somehow those studies I did 10 years ago, I wonder if the amount of time those children delayed, that were able to delay gratification, actually has had an impact on the lives that they're leading now as adolescent teenagers, sort of 16, 17 years old. He went back and found all the data, and at the time that delay time was almost irrelevant. It was just a setup to see how they'd managed the temptation. But now they had all that data, they had all these delay times. So when they started to cross-reference the times with the children in their modern day living as now adolescent teenagers, they started to notice this amazing trend. Those that were able to delay the longest versus those that gave up the quickest, there was about 210 point difference in their SAT scores, which I believe are a bit like our GCSEs or A-levels maybe. So like massive important data that improved by a huge margin. They then followed these children over the next decade or two into adult life and almost beyond. Is there anything beyond adult life? I don't know. But anyway, for the next couple of years. And they found that those that were able to delay gratification the longest were the most successful, less likely to be addicted, earned more money, and all these amazing litany of wonderful benefits of being able to use willpower effectively to resist the marshmallow. Now, this kickstarted a whole revolution in the world of willpower. There were t-shirts emblazoned with "Don't eat the marshmallows." Even Sesame Street's Cookie Monster, you can imagine, started to teach kids via Sesame Street about delaying gratification before he ate his cookies. And if you can remember the Cookie Monster, he used to just shove them in all the time, didn't he? How wonderful is that? So then it was simple, right? All you had to do was learn the skill of delaying gratification and hope that you were blessed with cast iron willpower. The problem with that, for me personally, was that I reckon I would have lasted about 2 seconds in that study before I just face planted straight into that marshmallow. Like, I just think I would. And maybe you're the same. I feel very similar to me. And it was that sort of despondency of, oh, well, am I doomed? Is it curtains for me? Because basically I've got willpower of a saint, so my life's going to be a complete mess. But then again, to pause and reflect and think, well, hold on a minute. At the time I'm learning this, I'm now sort of heading into my mid-30s and being relatively successful in lots of different things. So it doesn't quite add up for me. And what you realise about all of those research is that it's just an average, right? So there were clearly some children that were the quickest to succumb to the marshmallow that went on to have the most amazing lives. So it's just an average first and foremost. And that research has since been challenged, that actually a lot of the influence and impact on the results was less about the willpower and more about their environment and their economical background as that played out over the next 5-10 years. So there's a lot of conjecture around the research, which is great, because then I started to find holes in it everywhere. Rather than being completely despondent and give up, I was like, no, I'm going to go and test that theory. Is that true for me? So I started to research willpower, and I found fatal flaws all over the place in the willpower approach, which was really the secret to unlocking the key to long-term sobriety in many ways for me. And this is what I found. Willpower is like a metaphorical muscle. The more it's used, the quicker it runs out. And the way they found this out was with more sugary treats. It seems to be a theme in this type of research. Roy Baumeister, I think that's how you pronounce his name, created a test where what they would do is they would put a warm plate of cookies in front of participants in the research and leave them sat in front of these cookies for 10-15 minutes, but they can't eat the cookies, right? So you can imagine a real drain on your willpower. You want to eat the cookies, but you can't eat the cookies because you're doing this silly testy thing. Anyway, they would then bring them into a room and get them to sit this test. It was a test or puzzle, sit a puzzle. Now, this was a puzzle with a difference. The difference being it was impossible to solve. How mean is that? By the way, so you've got to try and solve a puzzle that is impossible to solve. But what they do in research, and it's really interesting, they then time how long it takes someone to give up. So this is a really great test, a standard test almost of psychological endurance. At some point, you're just going to go, I can't get it, I give up. So what they found was that those, because they had 3 different groups, some people weren't sat in front of any cookies, some had radishes, which are far less appealing, aren't they? And some had nothing at all, the control, as it were. What they found was those that were put in front of the cookies clearly drained their willpower tanks to resist the cookies. They were the quickest by a long margin to give up on the impossible task over those that in the control group and those that had radishes in front of them. So what this exposed was this genius insight that actually willpower is like a metaphorical muscle. You're using it up throughout the day on all the small willpower challenges to the big ones, not screaming at the boss or to resisting the drink. So then by the time you get to the end of the day, very often your willpower tanks are depleted, and hence why so many people, I think, find it more difficult to resist temptation in an evening versus in a morning. And equally, the flip of that script is why it's much easier to take on your willpower challenges of a morning rather than the evening. Think about exercising in the morning versus exercising in the evening. That would be a classic for me. If it's in the morning, I'm much more likely to do it. If it's in the evening, there's always an excuse or a reason not to. That's due to your willpower tanks. Flaw number 1. Flaw number 2. Life for me is a beliefs game. And I really started to find this out through the great work of the Stoic philosophers, Epictetus and Seneca, and then the work that I did with John Grinder, the guy that taught Anthony Robbins in the world of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. I'd already started to use these types of approaches in my business career and in my mind, really, that life was a beliefs game. So I started to reflect upon my relationship with alcohol and more broadly, my relationship with everything, and realized that most things are built on a set of beliefs. Now, if you think about it from Walter Mischel's study and the marshmallows, let's just say one of the children, and let's not protect his name to protect the innocent. Let's call him Andy. And let's say Andy, when he was about 4 or 5, went to a friend's party. And at this party, they had a limitless supply of marshmallows. Marzipan in my case. But anyway, marshmallows. And let's say he stuffed his face with them because it was limitless, right? And he just kept going and going and going. And then he got in the car on the way home and got bright pink sick all over the back of the car. And his mum went absolutely nuts, right? And even the thought to this day, some 45 odd years on, the thought of marshmallows, makes him queasy, right? Now imagine that 4 or 5 year old version of me that's just had that lived experience of marshmallows and has got bright pink sick all over the back of the car, and then goes into Walter's test and he says, there's a marshmallow. Think how easy it would be for that child to resist temptation, because fundamentally he wouldn't want to eat it, right? Because even the thought of it makes him queasy. So there'd be no resisting, there'd be no techniques to try and resist temptation. His beliefs were fundamentally transformed by getting told off by his mum and having to clean the car, right? So his beliefs have changed. Therefore, with a different set of beliefs about marshmallows, I can't stand them. Actually, the thought of them is making me queasy. To resist the temptation to eat them is easy, isn't it? It's just not even difficult. It's like you could put 1 million marshmallows in front of me and stand outside that room for 20 hours. I'm still not going to eat those things because they turn my stomach due to the beliefs that I now hold about marshmallows. This is the secret. They all change, isn't it? Think about it. It's a beliefs game. It's not a willpower thing. It's a beliefs thing. If you've got the right set of beliefs, you don't need the willpower. This is the fatal flaw of willpower again. That is why trying to make change on willpower alone is always doomed to failure. And it's the number one mistake people are making all the time in trying to change their relationship with alcohol, trying to change the way that they eat, the way they move. They're trying to do it on willpower. Willpower is always doomed to failure because it runs out. Whereas when you change your beliefs, you don't need any willpower. So here's the next bit that I want to cover off. Now, I said something earlier that's really important to come back to. Why is it that some tasks you require lots of willpower and others you don't? And I would also guarantee it's in your story. There are certain things that you do that you find completely easy that require 0 willpower that other people would require a ton of willpower. For example, let's say you're really patient and kind with the children, and actually you find it easy not to snap, whereas there's other people in your life that are using every ounce of willpower not to snap at the kids. Maybe you require 0 willpower to not smoke, yet there are millions and millions of people right now using every single ounce of their willpower to not smoke. Get the idea? What is the difference? So what it says to me is, it's not a willpower thing, is it? It's not a willpower problem, because you're like me. We display willpower all the time in different arenas of our life, and in arenas where people would look at you and go, that's amazing, I can't believe you can do that thing without snapping or without smoking. So therefore, it's not a willpower thing again. It comes back to the same root. It has to be our beliefs about the behavior that drives the fact that willpower either exists or it doesn't. So what is that? Let's unpick that together. That is ambivalence. This is the secret to unlocking the behavioral change code. It's ambivalence, right? Because if there is ambivalence, let's explain what that is. Ambivalence is the love-hate relationship that you have with any type of activity. If you have a love-hate relationship, there's ambivalence, right? That is, on one hand, I quite like having a drink with my mates. On the other, the hangovers are just debilitating, right? Love, hate going on inside your mind. That kickstarts ambivalence. Now, where there's ambivalence, there's willpower. Because if you've got ambivalence, you've got a love-hate thing going on to do the thing that you sort of love, but is causing you unwanted consequences, you're going to require willpower to overcome that side of the scales, as it were. Whereas, and this is where I'm going with this, if you are all love or all hate, there is no willpower. So let's just say for me now, right? Let's think about Andy. Let's think about 3 Andys walk into a bar. And I've mentioned this before, but this highlights the exact point. 3 Andys walk into a bar, but they're all 10 years older than the first. The first Andy goes in. How old is he? He's 25. He walks in the bar at 25 and faces the same ice cold pint that the other 2 Andys are going to face. So neurologically, they're all going to have the exact same experience of that pint. They're going to see it, sense it, smell it. Now, 25-year-old Andy has no ambivalence in my brain about alcohol. It's all upside. Therefore, I don't need any willpower. There's no willpower hanging around, right? I'm just going to have that drink. There's no willpower. No ambivalence, no willpower required on the I like drinking side of the island. Now, I walk back into that same bar 10 years later. I'm now 35. There's loads of ambivalence in my brain. You know, on the one hand, alcohol's how I do business and meet friends, and I thought I have fun and maybe it appears to relax me. On the other hand, it's causing me anxiety, panic attacks, underperformance. It's preventing me leading the life I want to lead. I've put on a load of weight because I can't be asked to exercise. I've got loads of ambivalence in my brain. Therefore, it's a 50-50 if I drink or not. And the only way to resist the temptation to drink is to use willpower. And then I'm at the mercy of my willpower tanks that run out. And let's say that's the end of a long, stressful, hard day. My willpower tanks are empty. Do I drink? Do I not drink? I have a drink and I'm frustrated. I tell myself I've got no willpower. I'm rubbish. I'm doomed to failure. Fast forward 10 years. 45-year-old Andy he doesn't even walk into the bar. He moonwalks into the bar, right? Looking $1 million, suntan, flowing long ginger hair. There's an oxymoron. But anyway, right there. And he literally looks at that same pint and he smells it and senses it in the same way as, you know, alcohol Andy, ambivalent Andy. And he walks straight past it. It holds no power over him at all. There's no emotional pull whatsoever. He walks straight past that pint into his best, most optimal life. Now, the difference between those 3 Andys had nothing to do with willpower. 0 to do with willpower. Everything to do with the beliefs and ambivalence. Alcohol Andy, 25. There was no ambivalence there. It was all upside for alcohol, so no willpower required. In my mind, it was easy. I took a drink. Ambivalent Andy, conflicted, needed willpower, might drink, might not drink. Alcohol-free Andy, 45, again, no ambivalence again, because now it's all upside for being alcohol-free. The scales have tipped completely the other way, so there's no ambivalence again. So there's no willpower required. I could be surrounded. I could have been locked in that pub for 1,000 years with no running water, and I still wouldn't need to have a drink, or maybe then. But you get the point. So, this is the secret. Can you see what we're unlocking here? We're unlocking the secret to lasting behavioural change. It's nothing to do with willpower and everything to do with your beliefs. And then the ambivalence then that's created with those beliefs, love, hate. So all you have to do is tip the scales to one side or the other, depending on the change you want to make. It's all love or all hate, and then it's done. No willpower, no ambivalence. The change is made. That is the secret to the willpower free methodology that I've been developing for the last decade or more, and that will feature very soon in a book that I'm first draft through, which I'm really, really excited about. So there you go. If you want to change anything in your life, the willpower free approach is the way to go. Hopefully you enjoyed this little ramble today. I'm really excited about the podcast. We're getting to get some great guests to come and join me, so it's not just me banging on, although many of you report back they quite like these personal episodes. But we will be bringing some wonderful guests back into the room. I might do some of that online as well as in person, so I can reach more people. And do let me know if you've got any suggestions of brilliant guests for the podcast. Keep rocking it on this life adventure. Do come and find me on the socials. Drop me an email, team@andyramage.com. And if you enjoy this podcast, please follow along so you don't miss any more, and share it. I'd be really grateful if you'd share it in your groups that you're a part of, with friends, with family members, or anyone that you think might enjoy these conversations. Until next time, keep it alcohol free. Your coach, Andy.